Hello TVC people and welcome back, and in today's video, as previously mentioned in my latest short, today's video is going to be a showcase of my Kai, Fire Dragon and J Thunder Dragon fusion mock. And before getting into the actual build, I will just say that before building this guy, I originally had a few criteria that needed to be fulfilled. One was that the dragon needed to fit for both Kai and J. Another was that it needed to only use parts from the Thunder Dragon EVO and Fire Dragon EVO, and only the dragon specifically. It couldn't use any of the villain side builds or anything like that. And the last one was that it needed to feature both lightning and fire elements. And tell me what you guys think in the comments below. And without further ado, let's get started. Also, something else I forgot to mention is that with all my mocks from now on, I'm actually going to focus on one specific criteria. And for this specific dragon, it was durability. Alright, so starting off with the heads, you guys can see that both heads are exactly identical to how the original sets did them. I didn't change anything about the molds, I didn't swap the jaws around, I kept the attachment system since I could only use parts from these sets. And the droid arms weren't included in these sets, so I couldn't use droid arm attachments. But you guys can see the jaws open up on both sides, the head moves up and down. Oh, I forgot to mention that none of my mocks are quality control tested, so they will definitely be a lot weaker than an official Lego set. So yeah, the jaws move up and down, they can close, open and close on both sides. The heads also rotate up and down even though they're not connected to a neck or anything. It uses that exact same attachment system just because there is no better way to do it with the parts in these sets. I could have used the ball joints since I did have quite a few, but I wanted to use them for the tail just to make it look a little more interesting. But in the middle level, they do actually rock side to side. That's pretty useful. But on the top level, since they're blocked by that piece behind, they can only go up and down. So yeah, that's limited movement, but I had to use what was included in the set. Moving on to the front arms, since both front arms are the same, just flipped around on each side. I'm not going to go too in depth on the other one. I'll probably just mention it later on. But on top there is a brown ingot there, plus some blue tiling, and then the SES piece followed by the cover SES piece. And then underneath that, I actually extended the front arms just so that it would look a little longer and definitely fit more to scale with this whole double dragon. And I think that it looks better. I extended the shin specifically because I thought that for the front ones, extending the shin would look a little better. And for the back ones, you guys will later see that I extended the thighs longer. So yeah, that's just something to note. I did try my best to cover up those holes on the SES pieces, and I think that I did pretty well with that. So that's good. Down here, we also have another brown piece, another brown slope. And then underneath there, you guys can see it's the ball joint attachment, which attaches to the foot. And the foot is actually the Thunder Dragon EVO's foot, except the back and yeah, just the whole back is completely different. And that's just because I use the Thunder Dragon EVO parts in other areas, like the middle belly, as you guys will later see. So yeah, alright, now moving on to the top of the sort of chest area, you guys can see that it can sit both Kai and J inside, but their seating saddles are actually different colors. This is because each set came with a different color saddle. I was thinking about using both the blue tile pieces here as the saddles, but then it would just look really inconsistent on the front legs, and I did not want that. In the middle here, you guys can see there's a Nexo shield, and under that is the gold tile piece that was seen on Jay's Thunder Dragon EVO's head. Here we have a spike also seen on Kai's saddle, and here we have two clips and another two sets of clips down there. And these are actually meant to be sort of like handles, so if I get Kai in here, you guys can just see how that's sort of meant to work. It doesn't really work, but it kind of looks the part, so I think that's good. The wings are attached in a similar way, so it's similar to Kai's Fire Dragon EVO, not Jay's. Jay's are attached via the elbows, and I think that looks really weird, but they're just attached via one. Kai's one used two, which is why they used the longer Technic pins, but I just chose to use one instead because I think it looks better, definitely more minimal, and it's definitely easier for me to build. Over here on the slopes here, you guys can see it's a dark azure slope followed by a corner piece, a triangular corner piece, which is in red, and I think that looks really good. And on the topic of wings, I use the fire ones in the back and the lightning ones in the front on both sides. But on both sides, I also included the little attachment that was on the Fire Dragon EVO. But this one, I actually replaced the white spike. I added those onto the tail, and instead I replaced them with the sides, which were also the horns on Kai's Fire Dragon EVO's actual head. And I think that looks a lot better, in my opinion. It's definitely different. You guys can definitely prefer the other one if you do. I just think this one looks more like aggressive, I would say, while still being fairly slim so that it can, glide through the air. That's kind of my thought process. Moving on to the under chest, it looks really, really messy. But what I was trying to do was make it look really muscular, similar to how Lloyd's Legendary Dragon looks. And you guys can kind of see it from the front, how it's just kind of stacked. but there is only one stack visible, which isn't exactly what it looks like, but good enough, I guess. And this part is actually the weakest part of the entire set, because if I pull hard enough, that comes off obviously, but if I pull hard enough, you guys can see all that just comes off. And that's just because it's only attached via the top studs rather than adding supports on the bottom. But I think that it still looks pretty good. So yeah, reattaching that head, we can now move further back, where you guys can see I use those same wing attachment pieces, which are just these Technic pinholes, and they're connected to studs on the bottom. And I actually used these pieces right here. Might just be easier to remove them. You guys can see there. That's what I use to connect them. And that's just so that it ends up lining up with the curved dark azure pieces. And I think that lining up actually looks really good. And I've used another one of those dark azure curves in front of that one. And I kind of just like how it goes up and down. I don't know what it is. It just looks really smooth to me. Then moving further back, you guys can see I have more dark azure on top of the orange circular plate. This is definitely the worst looking part of the entire dragon in my opinion, because the circle edges just stick out so much and they're really out of place. So yeah, if I were to improve on this, I would probably use a plate in place of that. But since there weren't as many plates in Kai's Fire Dragon's EVO set, I couldn't. And I'm fine with it. I guess it looks alright, but it just protrudes a little too noticeably in my opinion. But yeah, using those curved pieces, those dark azure curved pieces, they both curved into the middle of the circular piece. And I think that looks pretty good. Over here, we also use the tiling, and I think that looks really good. It definitely adds a lot more bulk and width to the chest of the dragon, more the stomach actually. But yeah, it definitely adds a little more bulk. And for such a large dragon, I think it needs that bulk, otherwise it looks like everything's just kind of out of place. Another thing I will mention is that the paneling underneath actually goes up as it reaches the back. And that's intentional. That's to make it look like it's going a little slimmer as it goes further back, because that's generally what LEGO actually does with their dragons. But it doesn't look as good, mainly because there weren't any inverted slopes included in these sets. So I couldn't add a smooth transition in between them. It's just kind of like a very clunky look. And moving on to the back legs, which are attached by mini mixer ball joints, which are the exact same way they're attached in both sets, I believe. Oh, remember how in my Kai's Fire Dragon EVO review, I talked about how these things pop off really easily? Well, I just repeated the same mistake, but it definitely makes it look a lot better than just without. So I guess I kind of understand what LEGO was going for in that set now. But anyways, the top thigh of the back leg is made using one of those dark azure curved pieces, and there's the triangle point there in red. And I actually really like the back legs. I forgot to mention, I think that the back legs are definitely better than the front legs. The front legs were kind of the rough thing that I wanted to make look good, but in the end the back legs definitely do look better. Just look for yourself. But yeah, the back legs definitely have a lot more dark blue in them, while the front ones are definitely more orange. But yeah, next to Knight Shield, followed by SES piece underneath, Woo hat, polo stud underneath that, and then brown slope here, and then there's the ball joint. The ball joints here are the longer ones, which are found on the front of Kai's Fire Dragon EVO, so that's pretty cool, I guess. And the feet are pretty similar to the front feet if I just compare them. You guys can see that the front of them are identical. It uses that dark blue slope piece, followed by those teeth or spikes, whatever you want to call them. But on the back ones, I used orange, while the front ones, I used more brown. And I also used a dark azure 2x2 on the back of the back legs. So that's how they all kind of attach together. And they definitely work pretty well. The only thing that doesn't work well on both sets of legs is that they're only attached by one stud on both the top and on the bottom. The ankles are just a single stud, or not single stud, a single piece connection, but it's two studs. So it really isn't all that great. But reattaching that Woo hat and the top thigh, it definitely does still allow for quite a bit of posability. As you can see, I can kick up here. You can do the same on the front legs. The front legs actually have more posability just because I've attached the sockets onto the legs themselves rather than the actual balls on the legs themselves. That sounds really weird, but by doing that on the front legs, you actually get more posability. You can get the front to go lower, but since you want the back to kind of support everything, you kind of want them to have the balls so that they can't move around as much. Moving on to the area where it merges into the tail, and I will just say that the tail is actually my favorite part of this whole entire mock. So yeah, but we'll get onto that in a minute. But pretty much it's just some brown jumper pieces, which are supported by quite a bit underneath, as you guys can see. It uses those red pieces there, and I think it looks it doesn't look great in my opinion. And that's really for one reason, which is that it's just so flat back here. If I reverse these red pieces, it would have probably looked a little better, but then they would have protruded out of here, which is even worse in my opinion. So yeah, but I think that it's pretty good for what I could have done. There really isn't much you can do with all the pieces, but by having it really flat, it actually allows for really good posability with the tail. As you guys can see, I used a double mixel joint attachment to connect the tail. And while you guys may be wondering why I did that, since by adding it 2 mixel joints, that means you can't move the tail up and down, you can only move it left and right. But the reason I did that is so that it wouldn't constantly flop down. Now if I just show you guys by removing one of these singular joints, you guys can just see how it constantly wants to flop down. Like the whole tail just doesn't want to stay up. And that was really annoying me. And since I really wanted some play features and I didn't want it to pop off too easily, I ended up just adding this second one. But moving on to the tail, which is my favorite part, as I had mentioned, you guys can see that on top here, I used one of those dark azure pieces, and then down there, I used another one of those blue tiles, followed by 2 of the Technic pieces. And while they don't actually have any function here, unlike the front, where they can actually attach like wings and stuff, or just the blades, these ones don't have any function, but they do definitely add a little bit of thickness to that front area of the tail. And I think that looks a lot better than it did before. Something I forgot to mention is that this is actually a dual tail, or a split tail, as I like to call it. Obviously this moves left and right, as I mentioned, but you then get, it then detaches into 2 little smaller tails, both of which are meant to represent a certain element. So the one on the left side is lightning, and the one on the right side is fire. And I think that was pretty cool. And I only wanted to do that because this is a fusion dragon. I'm not exactly sure if the official fusion dragon that LEGO released a couple years ago, which was fire and water, I'm not exactly sure if that one did it in this specific mechanism. I'm pretty sure they did do it though. And yeah, I was just trying to copy that in a very similar way. So following that, there's just a circular red jumper plate, and that's supported by a brown circular piece underneath. And then on the back one, there's a brown square jumper plate, and that's not supported by anything because that has better clutch power. And then moving further back is the elements. And so these are exactly the way they did them in the sets. The fire one is exactly the same, but with the lightning one, since I felt like it was a little sort of empty without anything on 2 of them, I ended up just adding these spikes that were on the wings onto them, and I think that definitely makes it look a little better. Even though it's not like lightning elemental, I still think it looks pretty good. And yeah, tell me what you guys think. It is definitely shorter than the fire one, obviously, but its thickness kind of makes up for it, in my opinion anyways. And lastly, one thing that I will just touch on is that since I did try and focus on durability this time around for this dragon, I will do a slight durability test. It's not going to be anything too extreme, but I will just drop it from about 30 inches from above. So let's see how this goes. Right, so I've adjusted the table to 30 inches and I've tried to get it in sort of a standing position, just so that it's kind of this normal position that kids would play it in, and if they accidentally drop it, this is what would happen to it. 3, 2, 1. And by the way, this is actually how I film all of my durability tests. But you guys can just see that only 2 of the legs have dropped off, which is good. Both of them on the left side, and that's actually just because they're connected via 2 studs rather than 4 preferably. The SES piece dropped off. This SBS piece is completely loose now. That is not good. This tile also came off, and the back leg is in one piece. This is why I like the back leg so much. Even though there's the Lou hats on there, they still stayed in one piece, which is really, really good. And then there's the porch over there, and then another foot over there. So yeah. And Kai also came flying out. Now, before ending off this review, I will just say one final thing about like the build of the dragon itself. And that's that I use mixel ball joints on all 4 sides of the legs, just because there isn't a better option provided in any of these 2 sets. But I will just say that mixel ball joints really aren't great for leg joints, since they just drop down really, really easily. And that often leads to like parts coming off, and that's really not that great. And you guys will especially notice this if you're on a flat sort of slippery surface, for example, the glass table I have right here. And so yeah, even just without like any pressure, they will slide down. So overall, am I happy with my creation? Well, not really. I like how it looks overall. I think that a fusion dragon is a nice concept, and I think that in terms of looks, I've nailed it pretty well, especially if you look at it just from the front. In terms of durability though, definitely not very good. As you guys saw from the 30-inch shot, it just came apart like a whole ton, and that's really not that great. In my Kai's Fire Dragon EVO drop test, you guys saw how well that held up, and yeah, this definitely isn't able to compete against that. But it's a mock. It's not durably, quality controlled, and yeah. But overall, just tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I definitely do like this dragon, especially the tail and the back legs. But tell me what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and bye.